In the current landscape of AI development, the dominant consensus dictates that to solve the hardest problems, you need an army. Frameworks relying on swarms, role-playing arrays, and multi-agent debate are widely considered the ultimate solutions for complex, multi-hop reasoning. Developers and researchers are aggressively deploying these complex multi-agent architectures to conquer state-of-the-art benchmarks. The operating assumption is that dividing a task among specialized agents inherently yields superior logic. But an analysis of these empirical victories reveals a significant, widely ignored variable distorting the results. The perceived superiority of multi-agent systems masks a simpler reality. That variable is unequal test time computation. Multi-agent systems appear smarter because they are quietly spending vastly more compute at the moment of inference. When you strictly control for this compute, leveling the playing field by matching the exact number of thinking tokens allowed, a single, unified agent consistently matches or outperforms elaborate multi-agent architectures. Multi-agent systems inherently burn through vast amounts of tokens. They rely on multiple API calls, overlapping reasoning traces, and explicit text messages passed between individual agents just to coordinate the workflow. A single-agent system processes the exact same prompt using one uninterrupted continuous chain of thought, keeping its intermediate reasoning entirely internal. Watch what happens to the compute budget. While the multi-agent pipeline causes its token meter to spin rapidly out of control just to manage the overhead, the single-agent pipeline processes the exact same prompt efficiently, keeping its meter locked and stable. To prove this disparity, we will examine it through a strict information-theoretic framework and benchmark it against top models, including Qwen 3, DeepSeek R1, and Gemini 2.5. Paying for more agents frequently just means paying for architectural overhead, rather than achieving inherently better reasoning logic. Let's establish the mathematical baseline of reasoning. We define the target, the correct answer, as y. The total information available to the model, including the prompt and all its internal reasoning states, is the full context, represented by C. In a multi-agent system, specialized workers cannot share their internal neural states. They are forced to compress their thoughts into explicit text messages passed back and forth. This generated message is a filtered subset of the context, which we denote as M. To evaluate these two pathways, we turn to the data processing inequality, or DPI, a foundational theorem in information theory. The rule dictates that any time data is summarized or passed between discrete nodes, information is lost. Conditioning your next step on the explicit message, M, inherently leaves more residual uncertainty about the true answer than relying on the unbroken full context, C. Mathematically, the mutual information between the true answer and the full context is always greater than or equal to the mutual information between the true answer and the filtered message. A multi-agent architecture absolutely cannot increase mutual information. When a planner hands off a task to a worker and that worker passes a summary to an aggregator, the model is repeatedly forced to discard its rich latent reasoning context at every juncture. Splitting a complex task across specialized agents theoretically degrades reasoning efficiency by introducing strict, lossy communication bottlenecks. To test this theoretical prediction in the real world, researchers designed a strict A/B test. The methodology requires holding the total global thinking budget, which we will call B, absolutely constant across all architectures. For the single-agent pipeline, the model is allocated the entirety of budget B to spend on a single, uninterrupted internal reasoning trajectory. Against this, they deployed a sequential multi-agent system. This specific architecture was chosen because it is the closest structural analog to a single agent, isolating the exact cost of message passing without adding the noise of adversarial debate. This sequential architecture takes that exact same budget, B, and mathematically fragments it. The tokens are divided sequentially across a planner, individual workers, and a final aggregator, forcing them to communicate through intermediate text. By strictly enforcing this matched budget framework, the brute force compute advantage of multi-agent systems is removed. We are finally able to examine the true architectural efficiency of both approaches. The researchers ran this rigorous test across the MUSICY benchmark, requiring highly complex 4-hop reasoning logic. The empirical data reveals a clear trend.
Across both Qwen 3 and DeepSeek R1 model families, the single-agent system is the strongest default architecture, consistently matching or beating the multi-agent variants at almost every token threshold. At the higher allocations of 5,000 and 10,000 tokens, the multi-agent structures routinely fail to convert extra compute into better final answers. They plateau. A diagnostic analysis of the thought traces explains why. Multi-agent systems suffer from over-exploration. They generate long, misguided thoughts and frequently fail to extract the correct answer during the final aggregator step, even when a worker had previously found it. The single-agent system succeeds through focus. Because it maintains tight lexical overlap with the original constraints throughout one continuous chain, it reliably carries the correct surfaced answer all the way to completion. The benchmark data perfectly validates the mathematics of the data processing inequality. When compute is strictly equalized, a single agent's uninterrupted context retention decisively beats multi-agent specialization. There is a critical diagnostic finding regarding how commercial APIs tally these thinking tokens for agentic workflows. If you request a massive budget, say 10,000 tokens, standard API usage logs will report that your multi-agent pipelines are executing incredibly deep, extensive reasoning traces. But when researchers compared those API-reported tokens against a precise proxy count of the actual visible thought text generated by Gemini 2.5, they found a massive discrepancy. At the 10,000 token budget level, the API inflated the token count by a factor of 4.7. In reality, the actual visible thought text plateaus at roughly 350 tokens. It completely ignores the massive requested budget you are paying for. This bloated multi-agent token count is largely an accounting artifact. It stems from the system concatenating multiple small, truncated agent calls together, not from a model performing deeper, more sophisticated logic. Developers and researchers are frequently misled by opaque API accounting. They pay heavily for architectural orchestration overhead while mistakenly attributing those costs to superior reasoning. If a single-agent system is mathematically and empirically superior under normal conditions, under what exact parameters does a multi-agent architecture actually become the right choice? The answer lies back in the bounds of the data processing inequality. That theorem relies on one absolutely crucial assumption, that a single agent can perfectly utilize its full, unbroken context. In practice, long contexts often degrade. Whether due to positional bias, attention dilution, or a prompt flooded with distractors, the model's ability to extract mutual information drops significantly. The context gets scrambled with noise. This chart tracks accuracy under substitution noise. At the 0.5 degradation ratio, single-agent accuracy drops, intersecting the multi-agent line. By the 0.7 ratio, the single agent is overwhelmed, and the multi-agent system definitively overtakes the baseline. In highly degraded environments, forcing a model to stop, pass a message, and summarize its work becomes beneficial. The multi-agent structure imposes a strict factorization and verification process that rescues a reasoning trajectory that would otherwise completely derail. Multi-agent structures act primarily as rescue mechanisms. They only become competitive when a single agent's context utilization is fatally corrupted by noise or length. Multi-agent structures are exceptional tools for factorization, filtering, and verification in highly noisy, degraded environments. But for clean, complex multi-hop reasoning, single-agent systems definitively dominate by holding all latent states internally and avoiding the severe bottlenecks of explicit handoffs. For machine learning engineers, this requires a recalculation of strategy. The industry must stop defaulting to swarms and debate arrays for standard tasks with clear context. Developers should exhaust their single-agent compute budgets and optimize their prompt engineering before they introduce the latency, cost, and information loss of orchestration. Scaling agentic systems effectively requires a precise mathematical understanding of the exact trade-offs between compute limits, context length, and coordination overhead. Until a specific task explicitly exceeds a single model's ability to hold its context together, the most powerful agentic workflow is simply one highly capable agent.